I'm with Dr. Suzanna Kokkonen from Christian Friends of Yad Vashem. Now, Susanna, what is Christian Friends of Yad Vashem?
Yes, so Yad Vashem is the Holocaust Memorial and Education Center in Jerusalem, known worldwide because in fact it's one of the very first memorials founded in 1953, so only a few years after World War II ended. And the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem is a department here at Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, founded in October 2006, so fairly recently, to encourage Christians to visit Yad Vashem, to learn about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism, and to become friends and supporters of the work that we are doing here at Yad Vashem.
And how do you minister at the Holocaust Museum?
So we have about 1 million visitors every year. Most of the people who come to Israel come to visit Yad Vashem, and we want to have a presence here so that when Christian groups come, pastors who know us come, they can contact us and we can make arrangements so they don't just run through the museum quickly, but they have a meaningful tour. They have a possibility to ask questions, perhaps to see something that is not in the museum but in the campus of Yad Vashem. And that gives a much more meaningful time for them. And also sometimes we encourage people to do a debriefing or to talk about their experience. Many people are very upset after having seen what happened. And we sometimes also pray together.
And you have conferences and seminars. What sort of things do you teach?
So the seminars that we do seminars mainly for pastors and Christian leaders, even leaders in the community, not necessarily formally. And they come from all over the world here for about a week or a little longer to study anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, and Israel today. And it's very important because if you look at those topics, you see that we are going from the past to the present and to the future. And it's very important to have this perspective because if you come here and you just see the museum, you think about the Holocaust as something that happened in the past. And you don't really connect it. You don't really understand why you need to learn so much about it. But if you understand how the past and the present and future interact, then you actually understand that there is something to learn from this story that is valid for today, not just in the past.
And you've just recently had pastors from America for a seminar, haven't you? What have you been teaching them?
So we had recently a seminar exclusively for USA leaders, which we have never done before. And we actually added a day at the beginning where they studied biblical truths, where they studied the reading of the New Testament, the Gospels, how we read the Bible, how that will affect how we see the Jewish people, whether we are anti-Semitic or whether we understand the value of this land and this nation. The sponsor was the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., a brand new museum that will be opened in 2017. So we felt that adding biblical content was the very necessary background in order for them to understand what happens in the Middle Ages and how anti-Semitism develops in the Christian church. But then we always move on. And we come to the present day and we understand what's happening here in the state of Israel today. So we had, for example, the ambassador Tzvi Masel, who used to be Israel's ambassador, for instance, in Egypt. Tell us about what's happening in the Middle East today.
Is it important for pastors to learn about the Holocaust?
I think it's very important. I don't understand how it's possible to become a pastor without studying some of the most important things in history, because the Bible is connected to history. The word is living and active, and it means that everything that happens there, the stories and everything, has relevance to things that happen in our world today. And the Holocaust certainly is one of the biggest, the best documented genocide that ever happened. And if everybody anywhere in the world, like we believe, should know about it, much more pastors, because it really makes us question our theology. And we have to answer very difficult questions if we study the Holocaust.
Do you have Holocaust survivors speaking at some of the seminars and conferences?
We do. So, for example, there's one lady here at the Yad Vashem campus, Hannah Peak, and she actually I believe, was the last known person who saw Anna Frank alive in the camp of Bergen-Belsen in 1945. Hanna Pick, she was Anna Frank's childhood friend. So they knew each other before, but then they met just days before Anna died in Bergen-Belsen. And when she shares her story, people just, it's unbelievable for them, because Anna Frank is almost like a fictional character, because we know her so well from the movies and books and so on. And then suddenly to meet someone who knew her and was with her as a little girl, that's very much unbelievable to most people. We also have people who were on Schindler's List, people who were rescued by Oskar Schindler, and visiting Schindler's grave with these people, it's a unique experience for these Christian leaders. Before they come, they have no idea what they are actually going to experience.
Wow, it must be an amazing thing to hear some of these stories and tragedies that have happened.
Yes, absolutely. It's an amazing thing, but it's also very sobering.
Does the church today understand what happened in the Holocaust and how they were partly to blame?
Well, I think there are different trends or tendencies in the church. So you do have churches that are very much becoming anti-Israel, churches that are actually at the center of promoting boycotting Israel and things like that. And on the other side, you have all these Christians who have a very deep love and want to know their Jewish roots and understand where they come from. So I think it's almost like you have these two trends that are very much in opposition to one another, but they exist at the same time. I think even well-meaning Christians who have come to Israel many times, I think many times they are reluctant to look at the involvement or the lack of help that the church did not extend to the Jews at the time of the Holocaust. And then when we think about the theology, we come to the theology. Some of those theologies that were very much alive at that time are still in our churches. So I think it's very hard. It's hard for people to admit, I wouldn't call it guilt, but to admit that there was a part that Christianity played in all of that.
Is there still ignorance over the Holocaust today?
Yes, there is much ignorance, and in fact time is our enemy. Because as time is going by and there are less and less survivors with us, eyewitnesses of the events, it becomes easier to say that it never happened.
And we see the murder of Christians in the Middle East today. Have we really actually learned a lesson about the Holocaust?
One of the things that people always ask me, they say, well, doesn't it depress you? Like, how can you talk about it so often and, study the Holocaust and so on? But for me, I always feel that for me it's more disturbing to see what's going on today and to see that many people who say that we would never be silent if this thing happened again. But in fact, now when it's happening to the Middle Eastern Christians, all these people are silent. There are only a few organizations that are doing the work. It's not seen as something that the church as a whole needs to be part of. Have you, for example, heard that churches are praying for these Middle Eastern Christians frequently? Well, we haven't heard because it's not happening. And this raises very serious questions, and this makes it very difficult to say that we have learned from the Holocaust. Because if we have, why are we not coming to the aid of our own brothers and sisters right now? So I personally believe that we can never say that we have learned the lessons of the Holocaust.
Now, anti-Semitism was the root of the Holocaust. Is there anti-Semitism today in Europe?
Yes, so I think that's connected to your previous question about learning the lessons, because obviously anti-Semitism leads to somewhere. Any hatred or prejudice that we have, it will lead to some action eventually. So the existence of anti-Semitism today, whether it's verbal or it's actually physical violence, it's very clear. Even if we think about some of the attacks, some of the bombings or things that have happened, There may have been other people who were also there at the time, but we can see that the real target were the Jews. Not in the latest Paris attack, but many of the other attacks that we witnessed in 2014-15. So it's very difficult to say that anti-Semitism does not exist. I think we all know that it does, and that it's become very much alive in the past 2 years. And it's even genocidal, meaning that Nazi anti-Semitism was genocidal because they were seeking the complete destruction of the Jews. But some of the anti-Semitism that we have today, it's also seeking either the destruction of the Jewish state or very much the physical destruction of the Jews that they target in Europe. So we are in a very, very dangerous situation right now. And I don't know how many people actually follow these things and understand what's going on.
With the anti-Semitism that's taking place, do you think this will bring the Jews back home to Israel?
I'm not really qualified to, I'm not an Aliyah expert, so I really don't, people many times ask me those questions, but I don't really know about, the figures and numbers and everything. But I do know that in some places it's almost unbearable to be a Jew.
Why do you do what you do?
Well, I think every person should be living their life in such a way that they are doing something they really believe in. It might be that we have an ordinary job, but we are able to do other things. But for me, I'm very grateful that I have the possibility to actually also to have a job where I'm actually not doing a job, but I'm doing a kind of mission, keeping the memory alive, but also fighting against these things that are happening today.
And what's your prayer finally for the organization that you're running?
Oh, well, we need resources and we need more personnel, and the needs are endless because there's no limit to how much you can do. You can do more and more all the time. And of course, we need a lot of wisdom. When you meet Christian people from all different churches and denominations, you need to know how to speak to them. We need God's presence here at Yad Vashem to open people's hearts.
Okay, Dr. Susanna, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Shalom.